It's the same. We don't want to ask what we really want in life. We don't want to ask for that. We feel like we shouldn't or we don't deserve it. And there's a lot of psychological factors and previous traumas that have usually come from that. But it's about having the ability to map that out and literally stick it up somewhere where you will look at it every day and go, that is what I'm working towards. And you may not have it all figured out straight away, and that's okay. But at least if you're making a small improvement every day, 1 or 2%, you'll get to the end of the year and you're like, wow, I'm 300% better off than where I was before.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am thrilled to have a woman on the show today who can decode your business health in 20 minutes. That is such a great statement and so intriguing. Sonya Corkery, thank you for joining me today on Your Brand Amplified.
Thanks, Annika. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, your journey, and how you decided that this is the offering that you needed to give to the world after everything that you saw in business.
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know me, I had an epiphany moment when I was probably 8, walking to school with a garbage bag as a raincoat because we didn't have any money. We didn't have anywhere to live that we could pay for. So we were living under our business at the time in a mechanic workshop in a cold location with no floor and no walls, essentially. And that epiphany moment was, I never want to have this kind of life when I'm an adult human being. And so I got to see some really interesting things about my parents' journey in business. And so I got to make decisions really early on about what I wanted and what I didn't. And it didn't kind of come into fruition. I had a very corporate role before business, and I was in financial planning. I was in commercial lending and banking. And it wasn't until my now husband decided he wanted to be a business owner, and I kind of got pulled along for the ride. And then as that journey grew, I loved everything about business, and it pulled me in full time. And we got to the point where we are today. We've had some really big ups and some really big downs. And, you know, we've been on the brink of collapse and having to close. And we've had some of our most successful years yet. And so here we are on the journey nearly 2 decades later. And being able to decode someone's business like that is one of the most amazing things that I can offer people, to give them some insight on, you know, just a look at their business and a glimpse and say, this is where you're at and this is what I think you need.
I think that's something everybody needs. Everybody needs a you and what you're offering when they're starting a business, because there are so many things we don't consider as business owners, particularly if we don't have financial backgrounds. I think when I speak to people who have a finance background, I feel like they set more things in place before they go off on this crazy entrepreneurship journey, but many of us don't. So we just start and then we learn along the way. But it sounds like your corporate career was something where you had control, numbers, things that, you know, were defined, unlike the way that you grew up.
But the great thing was all of the training that I had was paid for by my employer, right? Why wouldn't I say yes? Now, if you don't know, Australia, we always talk, we have 4 major banks. Like, obviously, there's multiple bank services and offerings out there, but 4 majors. And we always talk about the big 4 in Australia. And Australia has, I think now our population is just under 28 million people. So we're pretty small in the scheme of things. We have a huge land mass, but we don't have a lot of people in our country, largely because it's not habitable in the main part. But our 4 banks are the most wealthiest banks in the world. So you ask yourself, why is that, right? We have a very small population. They're clearly getting paid extremely well. And subsequently from that, the training that I was afforded by my employer at the time, which was one of those big 4 banks, was top notch. So I cannot complain at all about the benefit I was given, which was the training at the smallest portion of the great benefits that I had. But that was largely the ability that I had to, you know, be able to bring that into business and really flourish early on. And as you said, so many people aren't taught that. Like, it's not taught, right? Where do we go for that information?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, how scary was it for you to make the leap from the steady job, great benefits, full-time pay, training opportunities, working for one of the big four into joining your husband's business and going into entrepreneurship?
Well, I had our second son. He was 2 weeks old. And my husband came home and said, I quit my job today. I'm going to have a business. And I went, excellent. Thank you for having that conversation. But he's a very driven human being. I'm quite fortunate that he is so driven. And I said to him, why? Just explain to me why. Like, we have it so good. You have a great job. I have a great job. What are we doing? Like, why are we taking this risk? Because I associated what happened with my parents as taking a risk that didn't work out. And he said to me, he's like, I can do this better. I can do this better and I can make us more money. Wouldn't you like to have more? Wouldn't you want more? And I'm like, I would love more, but, we're trained to be educated, get a great job, have a house, pay it off, have a family, and the kids go on to university and the cycle continues. And so I said to him, look, I 100% support you if this is what you want to do. And he's like, I need you. I need your help. Mm-hmm. And so my amazing Big Four corporate job allowed me to have time off to make the decision if I wanted to come back. They gave me 12 months to make a decision, and unpaid, obviously. And then 6 months in, I said, I'm not coming back. This is amazing. I love this in every way. I get to see my husband, who's my best friend, every day. People always ask us about that too, how we don't kill each other. But I got to be home with my kids. I got to take them to school. I got to drop them off. And sometimes I would have to come home and log on and work later, and get up early and work earlier before I did the things with them. But ultimately, what that afforded me was all these great opportunities. And so I won't lie, Annika, like, it was hard in the beginning. It was a cold slap in the face. And I had all these fears coming up about everything that I'd seen before. But it's just given me so much. I'm broken for employment, right? I can never go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely understand where you're coming from. As an adult, I've tried going back after being able to be home with my daughter and working little things for myself and my family, real estate investment, things like that. And then going back and going, okay, now I have to go back to work. But it's really difficult when you've had that situation. And because our kids, our families, we're not going to get that time back with them.
That's right. Yeah.
And so working for somebody perhaps who would understand that isn't always easy to find. And when we are entrepreneurs, we keep feeling this pull back to entrepreneurship. So, yeah. So you said it wasn't easy, but it's been worth it. What were some of the struggles that you went through that, other businesses can relate to?
So a few years ago, my husband's main business, we have 4 businesses now. Wow. And my husband's main business was electrical contracting. So in a construction-based business. And we've done everything right. Like, all the foundational setup is right. We park money. All of our liabilities are paid. We don't owe anyone anything, and it's been great. But a few years ago, within 3 months, 2 of the biggest builders, or the biggest jobs we'd ever done, liquidated their businesses, and one was like, I know I owe you $140,000, but I'm not going to pay. So within the space of 3 months, we essentially lost $800,000, which we were fine as individual humans. I'll preface that, okay? I have been in finance for some time. I've had a financial planning background. We have a great wealth portfolio outside. I am fortunate. I absolutely know that. However, when the thing that puts the food on your plate is on the brink of collapse, it is a level of anxiety that is unmatched. Like, when you don't know if it's going to be folded. We had 5 days worth of cash flow based on what we had to pay out. And we had a team. We had a massive team. We had all these projects that were half finished. We owed all this money to suppliers. And I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? And my husband was like, we're done. We're cooked. We can't get out of this. And I said, the effect that this will have and the flow on if we liquidate our own business through no fault of our own because of decisions made by others that affected us, that we're not doing that. I'm not having that. Sorry. And so I gave myself one day to cry, and then I had to pull myself together, and I had to strategize like I'd never strategized before. Like it took that element of my brain. I always joke that I'm a bit on the spectrum. I've got kids, that are on the spectrum, and I think obviously it's got to come from somewhere. And I went into that zone of genius where I was like, this is my thing. This is my moment. I have this. And it took me 12 months to get us back into the black, but I did it. And I had to do some really interesting things, but I even almost surprised myself at the stuff that I got to come up with. So, and when I did that, I went on to teach others because I was like, I'm going to give you some options, that things you might consider. And then it became regular that people were contacting me, right? And I was going, what is going on? And they're like, oh, I just want some support with strategy and getting your thoughts and feedback. And my husband was like, this is a business. We're doing this, right? And I was like, do you think so? I just really want to help people. I'm not really in it for the money. I just want to make sure people are successful. And then it just snowballed, Annika. Like it just became this thing. It took on its own form, and then the consulting business was essentially born.
Wow. As a business owner myself, I can tell you that finding the right people to hire is absolutely brutal. You post a job, get flooded with hundreds of resumes, but somehow still can't find anyone with the actual skills you need. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/work. Here's what makes ZipRecruiter different. Their smart technology actually identifies the top talent for your specific roles super quickly. The moment you post your job, their matching system starts showing you qualified candidates immediately. Plus, you can reach out to your favorite candidates right away using their pre-written invite to apply messages. No more waiting around, hoping someone will notice your post. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/work. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/work. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. First of all, let me commend you because getting your company back in the black after losing 2 big clients, being in the hole, having 5 days of cash flow.
Yep.
Wow. Congratulations. That's an enormous feat. And I'm sure you had to do a lot of negotiation with people and
Yes. Thank you. We had the best suppliers I could have asked for. People were very accommodating to our situation. Yes.
Amazing. But then to realize that out of that, your zone of genius provided you with another entire business.
Yeah. And then I thought to myself, this is great. I can do this from anywhere in the world. I can help people anywhere, because the great thing about business is it doesn't matter the size or the industry. We all go through the same challenges. We are all in it together. And when you say that to somebody and say, it doesn't matter if it's millions that you're turning over or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, the challenges are largely the same, and we can apply a lot of the same principles to help you, especially in the foundational setup of a business, like you said in the beginning. Oh my goodness, I get so excited if I can help somebody in the beginning, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to save you so much time and so much money, get this done right for you. It just makes me feel excited for them.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make?
Some of the biggest mistakes that we see, and I'm going to give a big shout out to the book Profit First by Mike Mollowitz. If you haven't heard of it, it's definitely a great read, and you can get it on Audible. Setting up the account structures and the company structures or entity structures correctly. So to give yourself the biggest chance of success, you need to make sure you're provisioning ahead of time for all of your liabilities. So one, you have to understand what a liability is. So it's understanding, basic financial terms. We go through how to read financial documents. We go through how to set up accounts, and we automate everything for people. So we go through and say, well, what's the industry that you are in? Like, let's look at the profit percentage around the world to make sure you're getting paid the way you need to get paid. And, how I implemented Profit First for myself, I kind of Aussie-fied it up because I'd worked in banking before. And I basically had, provision for all of those things to automatically come out on and every single, pay cycle, for example, and basic things like that. And people don't think about it, about having automated bank accounts with money being transferred and making sure that you put profit away in an account first for yourself. So you actually get paid, which is great, right?
Right. Yeah, that is something I've definitely made that mistake, not paying myself first and
Yeah.
not, yeah. So that's one big thing. Like you said, putting away in money for liabilities, for taxes, for other things that you know are going to happen on a regular basis. What are some of the other things that you see that you give people advice on?
What I would love to see everybody plan for themselves. And what I mean by that is, so we talk a lot about strategic planning. We strategically plan in the business for the business. But what I love doing is strategically planning for the individual or the family who's behind the business. Because what happens is we absorb this entity that we create from nothing. It's our baby, it's our child. We love it, we want to nurture it. But beyond that child, beyond that business, we are human beings and we have wants and needs and things that we'd love to achieve in life. So, how can we utilize this business, which is really just a vehicle, to get us where we want to go in life? How do we utilize it? Like the great thing about business, untapped income. It's not like a job. You have the ability to earn as much as you can. And how do we park that or funnel that out into maybe another entity that creates wealth for you? What about that? What about having a life where you have the freedom to choose, do I need to work anymore? Because now I'm getting passive income over here of a few $100,000 a year. And if I don't want to, I don't have to, right? But I do it because I love it and I need to keep my brain active. So it's a different way you wake up in the morning is I need to go to work versus I want to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that business mapping, I think a lot of us don't also go into business thinking of the end, right? Having the end in mind. And the end in mind, it should be about your retirement and your life and your lifestyle first, right? Are you trying to position the business to sell someday or to have that passive income stream that where you can kind of take yourself out of the business and have other people inserted where needed with a lot of really great tools and workflows? And it can be really hard to look at what you currently make from different areas and then think about your big goal and then map to it. But it's also a great exercise. And again, I think maybe larger businesses, but when you're in more creative endeavors like myself, sometimes it can be hard to look at that picture. And so it's something I've actually been doing currently and figuring out some of those things. And it makes such a difference in how I'm going to scale and how I'm going to think about my business.
Definitely. I can give you some really simple ways to look at it. So I always say to people, draw a T on a page. And on the left-hand side, just draw pictures because usually that's better for both, our mind and soul. Draw pictures about what your life is like now. I have a house, I have a family, I have a business, I do these hobbies, whatever it is. And on the right-hand side, draw everything that you envision that you would like to see. I'd like to see international holidays every other year. I'd like to see an account where I can swipe money and I'm not worried about how much the groceries cost. I have a beautiful home in this location. I have support financially for my daughter for university or whatever she chooses to do, and whatever you list there. Then if you can put a lump sum, a figure on that lifestyle and say, okay, well, right now I may live on $100,000 a year, but I would like to live on $500,000 a year and be. All you have to do is multiply whatever you want to live on for the year by 5%. And it will give you the amount of assets you would need to have a created lifestyle, right? So if you want $500,000 a year, you're going to be looking at $10 million in assets returning 5% a year. And the rest is just strategy about, okay, that's step one. How do I build outside of my business $10 million worth of assets? And what do I like? Do I like property? Do I like crypto? Do I like shares? Do I like bullion? What am I interested in? And so you can create a little hobby almost out of, doing and learning about those things that are going to serve you in the long run anyway. The beginning, it's just basic maths. It's like, okay, draw out what you like and let's put a figure on it.
Yeah, amazing. Like you said, so simple. Then we just have to think about, okay, then how do I get to that amount of money?
I think that the thing is we get scared when we ask ourselves what we want, right? Because you were saying, you're like, when people don't want to charge what they're worth because they're scared about, or following up payments because they don't want to, upset anybody. It's the same. We don't want to ask what we really want in life. We don't want to ask for that. We feel like we shouldn't or we don't deserve it. And there's a lot of psychological factors and previous traumas that have usually come from that. But it's about having the ability to map that out and literally stick it up somewhere where you will look at it every day and go, that is what I am working towards. And you may not have it all figured out straight away, and that's okay. But at least if you're making a small improvement every day, 1 or 2%, you get to the end of the year and you're like, wow, I'm 300% better off than where I was before.
Yeah. I want to think about other ways that you help people clean up their businesses. We've talked about figuring out what you really need to make and putting yourself first and setting aside money. You also do a lot with how you manage data, reporting, and everything else. So I'd love to hear some of the tips and tricks that you have for those areas of business. And
I love that people come to me and they're like, listen, I've had this business for 5 years and I don't look at financial reporting. And I'm like, that's fine.
No.
That's fine. But let's do it in a way, because you obviously don't do it because your eyes glaze over and you're like, I don't want to look at these figures. I hate this. I was listening to one of your other podcasts and they're saying, not doing the things that you don't like doing. That's everybody. Like, we're never going to do those things unless you schedule to do it. So we go, okay, on the 15th of every month, we're going to review the figures from the previous month. But if you hate looking at numbers, let's make it graphical. Okay, let's put it into pictures. Let's put it in a format that you prefer. We still need you to understand the information, ask questions. We need to drill down. But I want you to have it in a format that doesn't make it feel so daunting. And we can do that. We can also make that all your reporting is automated and sent to you. So when you give me the, I don't know where to look, I'm like, cool, I'm going to get on top of that. And we sit down religiously and we look at that. But we review the historical and then we forecast forward. And I teach people how to forecast forward and understand about, cash flow reporting. And we do that. And essentially I come into their business and I'll say, what is the role that you have? What are the tasks for that role? And what are your team members' roles and the tasks for their roles? And how can we better get these things done, maybe with you not doing all of the legwork per se? If other people can pull a report or it can be automated, for example, let's give you as much of your time back as possible. And so you can do the high level strategy thinking. That's where you should be spending a large majority of your business, is the brainstorming and the building of the business, and your team is on the ground executing for you. But we look at the business as far as what roles it has and what roles it could have to better the business, but also the ROI on those roles and, productivity and those kinds of things. So we do look a lot at the structure as well of the business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I know I've had businesses before where I scaled up very quickly. I got so many clients that I thought I needed to add more and more and more team members, but I probably could have, if I'd done some of that planning and forecasting out, I would have realized that I didn't need to hire so quickly, right? And then my cash flow would have been really solid, because that when you lose a client or somebody decides not to pay you for whatever reason, you're left holding everything.
Absolutely. So, it costs something like, in Australia, it's like $20,000 to onboard and train a person for the first few weeks. Like, when you look at the amount of people it takes and time it takes and funds it takes to advertise for that role, spend the time doing the interviewing process, vet all of, it costs money. So you want to be adamant about your decision that you have the right person, but you also want to make the decision very quickly if they're not for you, because the longer you hold on to them and try to make it work, the more it actually costs you in the back end. Not to mention the effects on your culture that it may have if they're, not aligned with your values or your team's values. And your team usually will tell you pretty quickly if they think that person's not a fit for your business. So you really need to listen to your core team, especially if they've been with you a long time and you know that they function really well. People will essentially vote off the island the person they don't want, right? And so it's really about listening. It's about hearing them and being open to say, hey, we didn't do this well, or how can we improve that next time?
What's your favorite thing about ClearPlan?
I love that it was an accident. I love that it helps people every day. And I absolutely love how many amazing people I get to meet along the journey of the way of this consulting business in all walks of life, in all industries, in all countries around the world, and how, even through a basic interaction, even if we don't work together long term, how those one or two basic things can change the trajectory of their entire business journey. That's the reason I do this. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that answer. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how people work with you, because obviously you do have the, strategy, the Decode Your Business Health in 20 minutes for free session. And then from there, do you usually work with people for a long time, or do they usually just need a sprint to get everything where they need to be, and then maybe a check-in occasionally?
Yeah, so we do offer the ability to have the 23-minute consultation with us. As I said, I work with anyone in the world that wants to look at doing that. When people work with me, ideally, I would like to see them not need to work with me after a period of 2 years maximum. I would love to see them after that period have leveled up so substantially that they continue their journey on from that point. So I'm not one of these people's like, I think you need to be with me forever, because at the end of the day, I want to bring those people up to speed as quickly as possible in their business and streamline those learnings so that, as I said, that they're saving on the money and the mistakes of doing that. And then essentially, get them to the next stage from there. So, we do the initial setups and the system works. So as long as you don't mess around with the system, it will work for you. And we review that over the first, 90 days of the setups and foundations of the system, and everything else is the strategic planning. And then from there, the world is their oyster.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you work with people from all over and every size of business?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a startup or if you're scaling your business or if you're getting towards the end of your journey. There's always something that we can learn and implement, I guess. And so therefore, we really want to make sure that we're giving you the most opportunities to be successful. And I love startups. I love it because it's great. We can get in there and help you early, right?
When it comes to your favorite client or favorite success story beyond your own family, which is the ultimate, do you have a couple that you could share with us?
Yeah, I do. So I have one of my clients he has a window tinting business, which in Australia, it's pretty sunny. So you would imagine that it's quite a busy business. And when I met him a few years ago, he didn't even have a vision for himself. He didn't know what he wanted out of life. He was really frustrated all the time, really angry, because he was like, nothing's ever working. I never make any money. Mm. And we mapped out what he wanted out of life for himself. And I said, keep it really simple. I don't want to overwhelm you. And he said, I want a pedigree dog. I want a classic vehicle, which was, like a 1966 Chevrolet C10. And I want a house. And I was like, awesome. And within 18 months, we'd achieved all of those things. We put his business into a position. We did a strategic planning day with his team. And within that strategic planning day, we changed one thing. And in that one change, we made him an extra $190,000 a year. And he has implemented like nobody I've ever seen. So kudos to him for doing that. But his business now, he is looking at having multiple locations, keeping all of the branding, so almost like creating his own franchise and utilizing those businesses to purchase commercial property to operate out of and building his own wealth portfolio of commercial property. So to look back and go where he was just so angry because nothing was working, he didn't have money and he didn't understand why he didn't have money, to now where he is and where he's going, it's a full 180, right? And I couldn't be more proud of the work that he's done, because that's all implementation that he's done himself.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to think that his dreams were simple: car, house, dog. And now it's a whole other stratosphere that he's in.
Yeah. Now he wants to conquer the world. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. And I had another client, he turns over $40 million a year. He nets $2 million though, and he only takes $150,000 a year wage. And I'm like, you have this amazing vehicle. What are we doing here? And he was in a very vulnerable state of, protection wise. He didn't have a will, power of attorney. He didn't have anything set up outside of the business for his partner and children. And, in the process of that, being able to implement those things, put him on a pathway where he's going to have something and actually be able to pay himself more and have this amazing business that's going to change his life, in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Love hearing those stories. And I love hearing home businesses, right? Service businesses, because there is always going to be need for those type of businesses. They're kind of future-proof against whatever else is going on with technology in our world.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is the first piece of advice that you would give to anybody listening? Something easy, because even thinking about perhaps setting up the different accounts might, put somebody in a state of panic. So what is the first thing that is an easy step that anybody could implement right now?
So I'd say be teachable and open to learning, for one. If you are closed off to learning, it's going to be really challenging because there's so much out there that we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things still that I'm learning too. And in regards to the accounts, if you aren't a reader, definitely try Audible. And if you can, listen to Mike Molowitz and get some of the basic top-level strategies, but even go into a bank and grab a booklet about the bank accounts that are on offer there. Just understanding the difference between, say, a transactional bank account and a savings bank account for business and how you can use them together to get the most out of your business. So everything in your business that's a major cost or a liability, as you said, taxes, and we have different types of taxes in Australia, we essentially have those things allocated to those accounts. And when the money comes in, if you do it straight away or it's set up automatically, utilizing your bank, and it just sends it across. So it does seem like an assault on the senses, but it's like reading a book and learning something. You can sit down and read through those products and say, wow, I could actually use that for this. And it's not going to cost me any money because that bank account is free. So we set that up and that's great. And so all it is the initial setup time put into place. Nobody controls it but you, so you don't have to worry about anybody touching any funds, and making sure that you set a benchmark and going, okay, this year my business can earn, say, 20% net profit. Let's do it. Let's set that up so that we can have a go at that and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? It's still all your money. It's still in all accounts that you control. It's not going anywhere else, right? It just looks like it's in different places. So don't get scared about it because it does work. And at the end of the day, if you needed those funds, you could pull them back.
Fantastic. And Sonya, I always ask my guests, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
You'll never know if you don't try. And I would say step into the uncomfortable space and become comfortable with it.
Very worthy. Lots to think about there.
Yeah, it's just we shy away from the uncomfortable, but if you get to a point where it's no longer uncomfortable being uncomfortable, if you can take it head on and be in a position or situation where you can feel stable and make decisions, that's going to give you the great mindset to push forward and really be successful.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for giving us some of your time, your advice today. We'll have the website in the show notes so everybody can schedule that time with you and learn more about what you do. And you did say you have 4 family businesses now.
Yes.
Correct? What are the other 2 businesses?
So we have the electrical contracting, the consulting. We do property development. So we bought so many properties, we thought, let's develop our own. And the other one is electric vehicle service design for high-rise buildings. So we do all of the design work for EVs because in the multi-high-rise, there is a requirement for that. And we supply the product direct for the client, for the end user. So we don't do electrical in there. We just do the design and supply. And so that was a real niche because Australia's got a target of net zero by, I think it was meant to be 2030, but who knows. And so EVs are a big thing here, right? And so we do the provisions for those for people.
Yeah. And are any of the kids planning to go into the family businesses?
I have 3 sons, and it's great because 2 are on the autism spectrum and 1 is very ADHD. And my middle son, who's very ADHD, absolutely loves business. I think he got hooked by watching the movie The Founder, and he could see the bigger picture. And so he comes home every day with amazing business plans, and I think he would definitely be the one who picks up the reins. But we love them, and whatever they choose to do in life, we'll always have provisions. We've been able to build a business that's got multi-generational wealth if they choose to take it. So if they do, great, but if they choose a different journey, great too.
Yeah. Yeah. How supportive. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's all I have for you right now. I'm definitely intrigued, and this is something I'm going through right now, as I mentioned. So thank you for offering me and everybody else who's listening some words of wisdom and some practical tips to apply in our own businesses.
That's my absolute pleasure. I'd love to talk to you if you ever want to reach out. You guys know where I am.
Fantastic. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it on your favorite platform. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share some actionable items for you to make your life and your business a little better every day. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.